And welcome back. We're still on this, folks. It's the Quirk series, and as always, we got another one. So we have one from Dennis Servin, who has a character that I really had to wrap my brain around to figure out a quirk for. Genos from my hero from One Punch Man. Because Genos is a cyborg, figuring out a quirk for him is difficult to say the least. Like, there's technically very little of him that's human. At most, it's just his brain and some of his facial features. The rest of him really is all just cybernetics at this point. And so trying to figure out a quirk for that, for his character, is difficult. Because in all honesty, there's only two arguments you can really make. His whole body's essentially one giant support item now, or he's a Nomu. Because at this point he's more machine now, the man. Loyal and just a mechanical. But no, yeah, he's more machine now than man. So let's just assume right now that his entire body is a giant support item, because he is a hero. He's not a Nomu. So then, knowing what his body does, like what his what his general abilities are, super strength, speed, the ability to reconnect, having blades in there, that's all the stuff the support item would give. But his core is what allows him to do all like the high-powered velocity fire attacks. So I think that's where we can lean in towards a quirk. So his quirk, flamethrower. By channeling the internal heat in his body, he's able to reduce fires from the pores on his hands. However, doing it too much will not only drain his metabolism, but char his hands. And that is actually an avenue we can go in terms of like the lore of why he's got a giant support body quirk item. Because in lore, if I remember correctly, like his family my One Punch lore is admittedly a little spotty. I know like the general pretense of most of these characters. I believe he willingly underwent the surgery to get the support item, now I'm calling it a quirk, to get the cybernetics, and he's constantly been upgrading himself to basically just help people, because I think it had to do with like the loss of his family or something like that. Well, here we could say that he was a hero, like he was maybe he had just graduated from the academy, became a hero, got his license, all that, and a villain. He was unable to save either his family or his family or whatever, and his quirk just wasn't strong enough to take on the villain until other heroes came, but by that point it was too late. So, and his body got severely damaged. Well, in order to compensate for that, he basically said, okay, I need to up my firepower. So now, basically the majority of his body is replaced. Now, in the My Hero world, in the One Punch world, pretty much all of his body is more or less replaced. He's got very little organics. Like, he's more or less a RoboCop. He's a souped-up RoboCop, but he's a RoboCop. There's very little in there for his actual organics left. Here, I don't think we can go that in depth, even though My Hero's got some weird science as well. I mean, for example, with Mirko, when she lost her arm and leg, she literally just she has replacement arm and legs, but nothing to the degree that, like, say, Genos has. Even though we've definitely seen some level of it's weird. Like, her leg is not to the level like, say, Genos has, but her arm kind of is. It's weird what they did with the tech there. The tech in My Hero is very weird, because sometimes it's extremely advanced, other times it's very rudimentary. And One Punch is kind of not that different. Point being is that if someone were to, say, undergo the procedure here in that Genos went in My Hero, I don't know if they would survive it. But again, I mean, they're kind of comparable to each other now. I think more on it, but regardless. So Genos probably still has like his heart, his organs, or his base organs. So his heart, his lungs, his brain, his face, and probably like even a stomach, just to like feed his biological components, because without that they would degrade. They even say that in RoboCop. He's still got biological components. He still needs to eat rudimentary food. I think Genos can probably eat a bit more than rudimentary food. Regardless, But as I said, his quirk, that's what we're focusing on here. His quirk would be a fire-based quirk, first and foremost. Now, back when he was all organic and fleshy, his quirk could be amped up to certain levels, but he would still end up burning himself. I think that was a problem when he got to certain levels. He would have to burn. So his gloves, for example, probably offset a lot of that damage. Similar to Bakugo, he is basically releasing whatever his quirk is through his palms. However, unlike Bakugo, where it was a combination of nitroglycerin and sweat mixed with like the ability to just create a spark with his hands, here it's more that he's actually burning his own metabolism. Even his body temperature would drop, weirdly enough. Like, he'd actually get colder because he's burning his own body heat to create these flames. And now, generally speaking, I imagine his body would rebound back from it very quickly if he's just using spot fireballs real quick, or doing a few seconds of a flamethrower, and training with that would increase that ability as well. However, now that he's got this giant cybernetic body, the amount of energy he has to put is lessened, because now it's being channeled through this machine. The machine is amplifying it to umpteenth degrees, while also compensating for, maybe getting, weirdly enough, more hypothermic by warming him. It's got a natural space heater function in there too. So he's able to compensate for that. Now, like in One Punch, if he so chooses, he can overclock his body and just overdo it. And that could still put him in a very dire strait physically, health-wise, physically speaking. But I think a fire-based quirk works because it's the only real unique thing that we see out of Genos that could qualify as a quirk. I think that's basically it. Because his quirk can't suddenly turn him into a cyborg. I don't think that works. Not to say that a quirk like that can't exist. I just don't think his entire body losing its organics and becoming a non-organic material, I don't think that works in the way that Genos as a character is designed. But fire, I think, does work. So something around in that vein, I think, is a good way to give him a quirk, I think. And his cybernetics are essentially just a walking support item. It's both a life support as well as a combat support item. And would obviously be very durable, can take a lot of hits, and can be interchanged, and still have all the traits that his general body in One Punch Man has. But I digress. This is just my opinion on the quirk. As I've said, obviously it's a fire-based quirk, so it's going to be very strong. Fire-based quirks tend to be very strong in the world of My Hero. And yeah, actually, now I think about it, if we look at the elements real quick, wind, water, fire, earth as the four basic elements, and if we add ice and lightning in there too, the weakest of these quirks actually seem to be water-based quirks, but to be fair, we don't see a lot of water-based quirks, so the jury's out on that. I'd say among the quirks we've seen, lightning really isn't that impressive, surprisingly. Kaminari is the only one that really shows off light. There's a couple other minor lightning users, I think, but he's the main one, and while it's powerful, it's been countered way too many times. But beyond that, ice is shown to be very powerful. I don't know if I'd say it's the strongest one. Fire seems to trump that, obviously, because fire can melt ice, and I haven't seen any scenario really where fire was losing against ice. It was more the user itself rather than the elemental matchup. So fire probably outranks ice. We've seen very few earth-based quirks, but the ones we have are dangerous because earth is all around you. So you have a full-fledged, you have an unlimited arsenal pretty much. And then what did I say here? Lightning, ice, fire, water, and then wind. We've only seen one wind-based quirk, just one, but it was a very strong quirk. So yeah, if I were to say what's probably the strongest elemental style of quirk, just from what we've seen, it's ironically probably fire. Fire's the most common, and it's arguably the most dangerous. It can counter a lot of those elements when you crank the heat up to a certain degree. Water just evaporates. Earth literally melts into magma. Wind literally strengthens fire. Ice melts. The only one that doesn't have a clear disadvantage against it at their peaks would be lightning. or electricity, I should say. But I digress again. Let me know what you think. Well, what do you think is the strongest elemental style of Quirk? Let me know about that too. But what do you think of this Quirk? Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.